Okay, and I need to do the screen share. And I'm going to make Debbie the co-host just in case we get something happens. We never know what can happen with cyberspace.
One never knows.
Okay, Debbie, begin the opening prayers when you're ready, please.
So let's start by just taking a minute to create the right outer environment for meditation. And we're really bringing together our posture, especially our spine, our breath, and our attention. And let's bring to mind the reminders to relax in our best meditation posture. Scanning for any tensions. Letting our breath settle into its normal rhythm. And notice and release any thoughts and emotions that might prove to be distractions. Don't suppress them, don't indulge them. Just watch them rise and go. And bring the mind home to the here and the now. In undistracted present awareness, free of grasping. And having created that well-aligned outer environment, let's now turn the mind within. And rest in the nature of your mind without altering it or manipulating it in any way. Nothing to do. This is a state of non-meditation. And release your mind and heart from its prison of grasping. Again, there's nothing to do. This comes when, with glimpse after glimpse of the nature of your mind, your trust and confidence grows. And a natural ease and generosity is revealed. In this state, the wisdom and compassion of the three kayas manifests. And relax by letting your mind, heart merge completely into the luminous flow that is the state of Rigpa. all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And may they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Okay, thank you very much, Debbie. So does anyone have any questions or comments about what we've been studying so far? Okay. And we're talking about part 3 of the Bardo experience. This is the elucidation of the intermediate state of rebirth. So what happens to us in this state of rebirth, how we are becoming to be reborn again, or to be able to recover and to be able to rescue and stay within the Bardo of reality, and possibly to become liberated. So we're examining this first part. So if you turn to page 130, I just want to establish a little bit of a stream of consciousness here. So from where we were last time, and just read a few excerpts from what we've already covered. So on page 130, at the very bottom, it says, this body is described in the Tantras having the bodily form of one's past and emergent existences, complete with all sense faculties and the power of unobstructed movement, endowed with miraculous abilities derived from past actions, visible to those similar in kind and through pure clairvoyance. So here it goes on to describe this mental body, that at this point we are this mental body. We slowly become away from being able to be rescued by the peaceful deities and by the wrathful deities, the fierce deities, and we become more and more a mental body who is experiencing past karma, can feel the karmic winds kind of blowing us about in a direction that is actually downward, because we're seeking a body, we're seeking an identity, we're seeking another life, a rebirth. So remember that there are always two purposes that we are doing these practices, that we are reciting these. First is that we are reciting the Bardo Thodol for a friend or a relative who has passed away, and that we're trying to generate light for that being to follow, to be able to be rescued, to be able to be liberated, to be able to be enlightened in the Bardo of reality. As we do that, and as we study this, as we practice this, we find that we ourselves are becoming more and more familiar with this process, and that we are actually doing this for ourselves. And so as we enter into our usual practices that we do every day, or however often we can do them, it's best to do them every day, that we begin to see that we are going through this process of death and rebirth every time that we enter into a practice session. As we enter into the session, we are a person who has many different abilities and many different awarenesses and so on. And then as we proceed through the practices, then we begin to transcend. We can begin to liberate ourselves from the attachments and from the aversions that we've built up, and now we're recognizing in this practice. So by the time that we've finished the practice, that we may have been able to have gained a liberation. We may have gained a transcendence, not to go back to where it was that we began, but now it's like we have a new life, that we have a rebirth of being an ordinary human being who now has the benefit of doing our meditation practice for the day. So this is a very important thing to remember. So as we are doing this, as we are studying this Bardo Thodol, we are doing this to help our meditation practices, our deity yoga practices, to gain stability as our meditation leads us to our own awareness of our true nature, of our Dharmakaya nature, the Sambhogakaya nature, the Namanikaya nature. So as we are proceeding, we see that we go through these different qualities of being in the Bardo here, of this Bardo of becoming, and we're becoming aware of our clairvoyance. We're becoming aware of our being able to move about instantly in any direction that we wish to go, any place that we wish to go. and that we are able to respond to these karmic winds. What we are ultimately really trying to do is to transcend, get away from those winds, to not have those winds bother us. But if we are not paying attention, if we're not have been able to use the practices to liberate ourselves, then we are forced in these directions. And this is the direction to be born again. So these pages then go on to detail that, and you should read this again. It says that along the way, when we get distracted or we get really moving in directions that we're not accustomed to, that we need to focus on our meditational deity. That we need to be aware of our practices, the things that we do as a being in this life, and be able to develop a relationship with the meditational deities, with our teacher, our meditational deity, our spiritual teacher, and so on. So as we do that, we're building up merit, we're building up a relationship, we're building up a connection points, we're building up spirituality. And so as we are getting into moving around in this nether world, if you will, it can be the strength of these connections that help us to liberate, to guide us, to have us to recognize where we are, and to be able to reconnect with our practices, with our meditational practices. So our meditational deity, whoever that may be, whatever deity that may be. It says here, Mahakarunika. Mahakarunika is the great compassionate one. So this would refer to Avalokiteshvara. But of course, it could refer to any of the Buddhas or any of the great bodhisattvas. So we need to make a connection with those deities and find which is resonating with us, and really devote a study, to devote a connection to that. So whether it's Avalokiteshvara, it's Manjushri, it's Samantabhadra, it's Amitabha, Ascobia, whatever. It's upon us to be able to look at this and to bring this into our lives, to investigate what each of these mean. So gradually we begin to build that relationship. So then we, let's see here. If we get to page 159, so we left off in the middle of page 160. So to help us to get to page 60, I would just like to read page 159 up to page 160 where we left off, to establish a little bit more of our consciousness. So here on page 159, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje. These are not truly precipices. Oh, let me go back a little bit more. Sorry. We need to go back just a little bit more. Let's go back to page 157, the bottom of page 157. That's where we need to start. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje. At this time, the fierce, turbulent, utterly unbearable hurricane of past actions will be swirling behind you, driving you on. Do not be afraid. This is your own bewildered perception. Before you, there will be a terrifying, dense, and unfathomable darkness, echoing with the cries of strike and kill. Do not be afraid. Moreover, in the case of a very negative beings, a swarm of carnivorous ogres will arise, executors of the unfailing laws of cause and effect, brandishing an array of weapons and screaming out aggressively, strike and kill. You will imagine that you are being pursued by terrifying wild animals. You will imagine that you are being pursued by hordes of people, and that you are struggling through snow, through rain, through blizzards, and through darkness. There will be the sound of mountains crumbling, of lakes flooding, of fire spreading, and the roar of fierce winds springing up. Terrified, you will try to flee wherever you can, but your path ahead will suddenly be cut off by 3 precipices, one white, one red, and one black, all 3 awesomely frightening. You will feel as if you are on the verge of falling. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Bema Dorje, these are not truly precipices. They are aversion, attachment, and delusion, respectively. Know now that this is the intermediate state of rebirth, and to call to the meditational deity Mahakarunika by name and pray, O Lord Mahakarunika, spiritual teacher and precious jewel, save me. Say your name, Kunchok Bema Dorje, from falling into the lower existences. Pray with deep commitment in this way. Do not forget. At this stage, in the case of those individuals who have gathered the accumulations of merit and pristine cognition and have sincerely practiced the teachings, one will be welcomed by visions of abundant riches, and one will experience manifold, blissful, and happy states. In the case of those individuals who are indifferent or deluded, who have been neither virtuous nor negative, one will experience neither pleasure nor pain, but only an apathetic delusion. Whichever of these happens, O child of Buddha nature, whichever objects of desire or blissful or happy states appear before you, do not be attached to them. Do not cling to them. Be free from attachment and clinging, and mentally offer these experiences to your spiritual teacher and to the 3 precious jewels, particularly if the visions are of indifference, devoid of happiness or pain. Abide in the experience of the Great Seal, where awareness is naturally present without meditation and without distraction. This is very important. So with our daily practice, with our own meditation practice that we do, as we are progressing along our practice, and let's say, for instance, we're carving out an hour for ourselves, and let's say the beginning part, we're doing our motivational prayers and so on, and then we enter into our practice after about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we're going through that, and then say we're doing a deity yoga practice, and we go through the generation stage, and then we go into what would be called the completion stage or the dissolution stage, where we become the deity. And if we've done this successfully, then we should have this real sense of transcendence. But if we haven't been very successful in that, and it's been a mediocre practice for us, it's been an average kind of a practice for us, we may have these feelings of indifference. We may say to ourselves, "Oh, this wasn't so good. Oh, I'm not very good at this today, and maybe my practice is turning bad. I'm not going to be a good practitioner," and so on. And this is exactly when we need to kick in what was just being said here. We need to go back, and we need to double our efforts in being able to be devoted to Mahakarunika, to the great compassionate one, to our spiritual teacher, whoever that may be, to our meditational deity, whoever that may be, to our practice, whoever that may be, to rekindle that power that maybe we have felt some time, but maybe this time we're not feeling right now. So we need to be aware that sometimes we will fall into this quietude, if I can use that word, of experience with our practice, and we begin to take it for granted. So we need to work on that, and we need to go back and redouble that. Sometimes we will do the best we can, but circumstances are what they are. We don't have a lot of time. So we have to make the devotion that we are going to really work the next time. Our next practice is going to be a very serious practice. And maybe we're going to say, oh, I'm going to use an extra 15 minutes or something. So we have to be very deliberate in the way that we are practicing and what we're thinking about in our practice, and to be able to have that awareness of being able to become transcendent, to become beyond our sufferings of the five poisons of the ignorance and the hatred and the desire and the jealousy and the greed and so on that we should all be familiar with. So that's what this is saying. It says, particularly if the visions are of indifference, devoid of happiness or pain, abide in the experience of the Great Seal, where awareness is naturally present without meditation and without distraction. This is very important. So this Great Seal is the Mahamudra, is the meditation mind. And you might also use the words, the great perfection, which is the Dzogchen practice. So both is the same. They both are the meditation mind. But that's what we are trying to develop and become one with. So now, if anybody has any question or comment, please speak up. Otherwise, I'll move on. Okay.
I heard today a very brief definition of Mahamudra, and it said Mahamudra is where the mind is not engaged.
Yes.
That was very clear to me.
It is naturally resting. It is naturally resting in a state of bliss and emptiness and unimpededness are the three characteristics of the Mahamudra mind. There's a clarity, there's a restfulness, there's a sense of emptiness, awareness of emptiness, and there's this unimpededness.
Lance,
Is that what
could
you
I?
were? I'm sorry, go.
Oh, no, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to ask if that answered what Thomas was bringing up. Thomas?
Sometimes my mind gets a little clouded up with all of the words. So when I heard today, the mind is not engaged, that just cut through for me. So that doesn't disagree with anything that you said. It just said that when I heard that, that was very clear to me.
Yes, it's naturally resting and can be called into awareness. Awareness is still there, but it's not fixated on awareness. It's not looking at all the things saying, oh, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that. But it's just recognizing that we're in this phenomenal nature, but this Mahamudra mind is kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of suspended in that. Resting.
Not engaged.
Not engaged, yes.
Thank
Debbie,
you for
you
your
had
words.
something that you wanted to add to that?
It's actually something different, but I wanted to ask before we got too much further along, because it's back on page 150,
Okay.
where talking about coming out of the Bardo of reality, you will have fainted, and 4.5 days later, upon awakening from this faint, I wanted to check. It's my understanding, which may or may not be right, that actually what's happening at this point when you awaken is the reversal of the inner or outer and inner dissolution at the end of the Bardo of dying, that the kind of reconstellation of the ordinary mind is beginning, and you're having the white, black, and red, or sorry, white, red, and black in reverse, and the elements reconstellating and being perceived as these terrifying crumbling mountains and big floods and big fires, and that is part and parcel of what we're perceiving as external now, and back in very kind of dualistic mindset. And our Bardo body, our mental body, as we're going ahead, is being driven forward by karma, but it's different now from before that reconstellation in the Bardo of reality, where we were reacting more from our pure awareness and recognizing the peaceful and wrathful deities as aspects of our own pure awareness. Is that right, that we've come through that, and that inner and outer dissolution now reverses and is part of what's going on here?
Yeah, so when you're saying reconstellation, I think, or the word you were using, like a reconstituting, like a coalescence, the
Yes.
consciousness is coming back together again.
Yeah.
So there's
Okay.
there's more of a sensory of what's happening around us. There's thoughts that are happening. We're a mental body.
Mhm.
So yeah, so if there are lights and so on, I haven't seen it explained exactly like that here in the Bardo Thodol, but in some of the other commentaries there might be where the translator has described it in those manners, and but yes, it is like a coalescing of our mental powers.
Mhm.
And it's the same as again, when we're in meditation. If we go through a period of meditation and we have that moment, and maybe that moment is just 5 seconds, or maybe it's 5 minutes, or maybe it's an hour or something like that, where we are in that rested space.
Mhm.
That what Thomas was mentioning, that we are in the Mahamudra, we're experiencing that, but then our thought process, our brain starts catching up with that.
Yeah.
And we start thinking about, oh, wow, I wasn't thinking. There was no thoughts for this period of time. But now here come all these flood of thoughts. And we'd like to be able to turn them off. Sometimes we can go back to that meditation, to that Mahamudra state. But sometimes we have to say, okay, that is over now. Now I'm coming back into my body. I'm coming back into my brain. And now all these other symbolic things start happening again.
Mhm.
Because when you're in that Mahamudra, there's nothing.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. Yes, that's helpful in meditation, because you really can feel everything start to re-solidify. So I know just what you mean.
Okay, good. So again, it's a matter of practicing this over and over again. This is how we get stableness, by practicing this over and over again, giving yourself many opportunities to experience that. Okay. Does anyone else have something to add to this?
Just what you described or what you read, to an ordinary being, this would almost be like heaven or hell, in the sense where if you're not used to practice or doing any of these profound things, I mean, this can be terrifying, completely terrifying. And then when you're in a state of bliss and it tells you not to attach, for an ordinary person, you might think this is it. This is for a person that's meritorious, that has a lot of merit. Say, hey, I'm finally getting what I guess what's been promised, or what I've been working towards. So it's what I'm trying to say is very, for lack of a better word, sad for ordinary beings that aren't practicing, that are in this stage, and ultimately will be reborn again, and going through the stages of, what was that one movie that we saw, that you know, when you're a baby being born and you're crying and people around you are so happy that you are being born again. The baby having a glimpse or a little remembrance of where it really was, and, you know, saying, oh, I can't believe I'm back here again. I can't believe I'm back here again. And when people die, you know, people are sad all around. And finally you're thinking, wow, I'm finally leaving, and hopefully this time I'll get it right. And I won't
What
come.
movie was that, Tom?
That was the movie that we saw on
Oh, it's probably one I missed.
on the Bardo Thodol, when the young monk asked the older monk, it's
Oh,
not always a good thing to be reborn, you know. And that's, when you read this, that's what I thought. It's just,
You're a
can be so
bodhisattva.
easy.
You want to be reborn.
What's that, Thomas?
If you're a bodhisattva, you want to be
Sure.
reborn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting observation, and doesn't it point out, though, our dualistic nature, that as we get into, you know, becoming a thinking human being again, you know, that we can't help but this dualism. And so we could say, yes, it's very sad, but at the other way, we could say, oh, it's a blessing that now this being has another opportunity to be able to stabilize their spirituality, and that they have another opportunity to become bodhisattva, to have them be put onto the path properly, and with stability and so on, and that they're ever closer to being reborn again. So there can be the feeling of sadness, but there also can be the feeling of joy, that we're moving along. And, you know, it may not be as fast as we want or anything like that, but, and that we're here for the benefit of others. Like Thomas was just saying, you know, that we're closer to becoming a bodhisattva. So there can be joy for that. Okay. Yeah, well, it's a good observation. It's a good thing to think about, you know, to be aware of all these things. You know, we need, you know, there's nothing that that we have to suppress. We need to be able to investigate all these things, you know, to recognize these things and see this is the power of being an enlightened being who recognizes all these things. They see the successes, they see the failures, they see the causes for the successes, they see the causes for failures. And it's through that they're able to help beings. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to recognize and be able to give, you know, some advice to somebody. Say, because I've been down that path, I recognize what you're going through, and maybe I can give you this little bit of help here to help you get through this and get, you know, to your joy and so on. Okay. All right, so then back to page 160. So the middle of the page here where we left off. So it says, "O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchuk Pema Dorje, at this time, you will try to find shelter from the hurricane of past actions, below bridges, in mansions, in temples, or grass huts, or bedside stupas, and so forth. But this shelter will be momentary. It will not last. Your awareness now, separated from your body, will not rest, and you will feel redness, reckless. You will feel reckless, angry, and afraid. Your consciousness will be faltering, superficial, and nebulous. Again, you will realize, alas, I am dead. What should I do now? Reflecting on this, your consciousness will grow sad. Your heart will be chilled, and you will feel intense and boundless misery. Your mind is being compelled to move on without settling in one place. Do not indulge in all kinds of memories. Let your awareness rest in the undistracted state. So what this is saying, and again, in our meditation, we can experience this. We're looking for an identity. We're looking for some stability. We're looking for a place, because being in this degree of freedom is very frightening, like Tom said. And if we're not prepared for it, it can drive us mad. So we need to be able to recognize that this is what's happening, and that what we're trying to do is to let your awareness rest in the undistracted state. The last sentence in this page. The undistracted state, and the undistracted state is that of bliss and emptiness. That we're not attached to all these compounded things that we go through as a human being. That we are finding this meditational state where we are transcendent of that. And that only comes from our practice of that as an ordinary being now, in this life, to be able to develop that. We're not going to develop this in the Bardo. We may recognize it in the Bardo, but we develop it, cultivate it, and stabilize it in the Bardo of living. So I hope that makes sense, that you can see that. That's why we're doing this. This is our opportunity to do it. Don't think that when we are in the Bardo of reality, that we're going to hear this for the first time and be able to be liberated. Okay, so the next page, 161. The time will come when you will realize that you have no food except that which has been dedicated to you. As for companionship here, similarly, there will be no certainty. There are both indications that the mental body is wandering in the intermediate state of rebirth. Your present feelings of happiness and sorrow are now driven by your past actions. Once again, seeing your homeland, circle of friends, relatives, and even your own corpse, you will realize, I am dead. What should I do now? You will feel deeply saddened by your existence in a mental body and wish, oh, that I might obtain a physical body. So I think that really speaks for itself. Sometimes, as we are developing our practices as an ordinary human being, and we go through meditation and we have a breakthrough and we feel really good and very happy about that, but then there may be, a day or two later or something like that, you may say, oh, I wish I had that again. I've lost that feeling of bliss. I've lost that Mahamudra mind. I've lost that transcendence. And I wish I had that again, and I could feel sad about it. I might get depressed about it because I don't have that. So it's not an unusual thing, but at the same time, we need to be able to recognize what is happening and say, okay, this is why I need to stabilize in my practice. This is why I need to work in my practice. And then you may say, oh, here I am. Let's say I'm 40 years old. And I say, oh my goodness, it's going to be another 20 or 30 or 40 years before I actually am able to lay down my body. So I got to go through 30 or 40 years of going back and forth like this and so on, and that could be depressing all by itself. But the thing there is that we can begin to help other people, that we're working to help other people. And that brings great joy. It brings great joy to them, and thereby that brings great joy to ourselves. If we're thinking only of ourselves, of our own sadness, of our own inability to be able to maintain that transcendence, then that's a selfishness. And that I think is what the arhats experience. You know, they go through this, and their practice is for a selfish enlightenment. They're not thinking about others. The arhats in the Hinayana, in the beginning stage of the discipline of developing our true awareness nature, we're doing that for ourselves. But then we find that it's through working for others in the next step, in the Mahayana, as a bodhisattva, that's where now a lasting, a more stable happiness comes by working for others.
But I have a question here.
Okay.
So we've not attained the bodhisattva state, but we're engaged in these activities that benefit others, that bring them, let's just say, bring them joy.
Well, not necessarily bring them joy, but brings them their awareness of their responsibility to bring themselves joy.
Okay. So that's a result of an action. But as the actor who's saying something to them or acting in a certain way that influences them, it's my understanding that we should not be attached to the result.
Of course. Of course not.
So that means further that we're not caught up in being joyful because we're not caught up in being anything because they benefit. They benefit, and that's it.
Correct. Are being joyful or are being sad that they didn't get it. And then you feel like, oh, I just wasted my time talking to this person, you know, helping this person. And, you know, they're just not getting it.
So we do the action without attachment.
Of course. Yes. Doesn't that make sense?
To me, it does.
Yeah. Okay. So then the next paragraph here, page 161, says, consequently, you will experience roaming here and there in search of a body. So now we're looking for this stability, you know. So we're in this netherland, if you will, of just being a mental body is what this is talking about. And so now it's looking for an identity. It's looking for a place. It's looking for a body. So in our meditation, we may be looking for a persona. Say, I'm going to be a new Lance, or whatever your name is. I'm going to be a new person. I'm going to be reborn with this wisdom, with this skillful means that I have experienced in this meditation. And now I'm going to kind of reinvent myself, you know, as a matter of speaking, to be able to help other beings and to be able to demonstrate to myself that I've made changes, that I'm now a new person. I'm reborn now. So in that way, we're bound to have a new body or the same body because, you know, this is in the Bardo of living. We're in a meditation state. You know, but in the Bardo, now it's someone who has no body but is looking for a body. So we can relate to this through the persona of going through our meditation and being reborn as now a more devoted, a more sincere, a more practical, a more spiritual person. You might even attempt many times to re-enter your own body, but a long time has already elapsed in the previous and intermediate state of reality. In winter, your body will have frozen. In summer, it will have decayed. Alternatively, your relatives will have cremated it, buried it in a grave, or offered it to the birds and wild animals. Not finding a way back, you will feel utterly distressed, and you will certainly feel yourself trying to squeeze into the crevices between stones and rocks. Torments such as these will enfold you. This being the intermediate state of rebirth, so long as you search for a body, you will experience nothing but suffering. Therefore, give up your clinging to a body and rest in a state of non-activity undistractedly. Therefore, give up your clinging to a body and rest in a state of non-activity undistractedly. So remember, we need to put this back in context of who we're talking to, who we're reciting this Bardo Thodol for. This would be approximately day 30, 38, 39, 40, something like that, of someone who has passed. So it's just been a month and a half, been 5 or 6 weeks that someone has passed. So the body still may be present. It may not be present for the reasons that it just said and so on, but it's still fresh in the mental body, in the mental of this entity who is floating around in this Bardo experience here. So that's why they're looking, they may be looking for their old body. Yes, Thomas, you were going to say something?
Is that what they say, that when you leave your body, when you're dead, brain dead, heart dead, by all general accounts, you're dead, that you wander around for 37 or 40 days? My understanding of the disposal process, let's call it that fellow Chogyam Rinpoche, they burned him. But they did that within 5 days, I think, of when he died. And when the vultures come, it's colder, but that's done within a day or two of the passing. So I'm having, mentally, I'm having a difficult time mapping this 37 or 40 days to this brief period that the body is there.
Well, the body is one thing, and you're absolutely right about what you're saying. And the time period, is a big variable on many different counts. But it's what we're talking about here is the mental body that is in the Bardo of becoming. So this can happen within the first day of someone passing. They can just go boom right away, through the Bardo of reality, through the peaceful deities, through the wrathful deities. They don't even recognize them. They go right to wanting to have a body right away. So but they say that 49 days is the period of time that we allot for someone to go through this whole Bardo transition. They may do it faster. Maybe they do it longer. And one of the interesting things about this, and I've never seen it stated anywhere, but they do say that Buddha Shakyamuni, when he attained enlightenment, on the day that he attained enlightenment, it was 49 days before he began to teach. It was 7 weeks. And all the different things that he went through, we talk about in the life of the Buddha when we talk about that. And it was 49 days there. So is that an analogy? Is that a metaphor? Is that how they get the 49 days? Because here was the Buddha who was reborn, if you will, if you use that analogy, that was reborn with his meditation, but he gestated. You know, he was figuring out, he was devising the Dharma teachings during these 49 days. And he wasn't saying anything. Remember, he's being followed by his 5 friends who are constantly beseeching him to teach them. And he says, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. But meanwhile, then he goes back to contemplating this. And on the 49th day is when he sits down in Sarnath, in the meadow there in Deer Park, and he tells his 5 friends to sit down. He says, now I'm going to teach you on the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. I'm going to teach you on the cause and effect. I'm going to teach you about karma. I'm going to teach you about the 4 truths. So is that where the 49 days come from? I don't know, but it is an interesting observation.
Well, just bear in mind what science is. Correlation is not causation.
Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, so now back to the text. So this last paragraph, the last sentence here in this paragraph that we just read, it says, therefore, give up your clinging to a body and rest in a state of non-activity undistractedly. So again, this is going back to the Mahamudra mind, the state of non-activity. If we're non-active, there's no karma. So this is a goal for us. This is one of the things that we are developing when we come out of our meditation, when we do our ordinary meditation as an ordinary being, that now we're simplifying our lives. We find I'm not compelled to have to do all this stuff that I used to do. I'm going to simplify, because all this stuff was using up my energy, using up my time, using up other people's time. I just need to be able to learn how to be able to be free from having to do things, to be somebody, to just be my true self, my true nature.
Amen.
Which is, somebody was going to say something?
I said, amen.
Amen. Okay. So,
No, Lance,
yes, sir.
In
Yes.
a lot of Eastern cultures, they usually, after a person passes away, first 3 days or so, they usually have a monk, 1 to 3 monks, doing puja 24 hours a day, constantly. So hopefully that, and then after 3 days or so, 3 to 5, 7 days, the family's not really allowed to mourn or cry, because they want that person to move on. And if they see you crying, they see sadness, they tend to stay there and not move on. But
What culture is that?
well, in Japan, Korea, China,
So
and
pure land culture, would you say?
sure.
Okay.
So 3, 5, 7 days, people are drinking, eating, playing games, doing festive stuff. So when that person sees back, turns around, looks back, sees everybody's enjoying themselves, they're sending that person off to a better place. And like I said, the first day to 3 days, there's 1 to 3 monks. Usually, if it's pretty well up, they have 3 monks going 24 hours a day, doing a constant puja, making sure that person goes off. So
Okay.
being a Buddhist, usually you would want to have something in your will, or something that a monk will show up to your place and do this for you, and that'd be a good thing to do.
Yes, thank you. That's a good point. And there's a couple of books around that talk about, as a Buddhist, planning your your funeral or however you want to call it, you know, what you want to have happen with your body and your possessions and so on. And, you know, if you want a certain clothing or a covering or something like that, and they call it the Dharma box.
Mhm.
You make all these arrangements so that there's no question, you know, your family has to deal with and so on like that. You make arrangements with, you know, a monastery or the monks or whatever. And yes, and depends on the culture because different cultures have different ways of doing it.
Mhm.
So whatever is, you know, right for you and your family is what you should do and make those arrangements.
Certainly, certainly.
Hey, Thomas,
Yes.
just have a few Bud Lights in your fridge before you die. We'll come over to your place.
Hey, sure. Bud Light, whatever you want to drink and eat. I'll make sure I have the three monks just constantly chanting. You can join right in.
Just kidding. It's the same thing in Romania. It's like everybody's having a party when
Yeah.
you know, after somebody's dead. It was really cool at my grandma's you know, funeral to do basically the same thing you said.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've got a film when Penor Rinpoche passed away several years ago. And, you know, there was this period of sadness. But then there was this, you know, period of everybody being together. People from all around the world came. Penor Rinpoche was huge in the tradition and the culture and so on. And then there was this, you know, kind of celebration. And then it began, now we have to look for his tulku, for his reincarnation. You know, so yeah.
Did they do that with the sky?
The sky burial?
Yeah.
I can't say for sure. I don't know for sure. I've never seen it, you know, so I can't say 100%. But I can't imagine why not, you know. And
They do this before they cremate.
well, that's a good question too, and I don't have a clear answer for that. So I would think that you know, with a high lama, the cremation is kind of, you know, what they're going to do. But with a lesser ordinary person, then they may resort to, you know, an ordinary cremation or to a sky burial or something like that. So I can't say 100%.
We saw a video of a funeral that took place for a relative of our Vietnamese foster son's family. And they have a big parade through the town with bands playing, and they feed everybody for days. They cook and cook and cook, and anybody who comes in, they feed and take care of them. It's quite an elaborate celebration.
Yeah.
Of
Okay.
course, that's all with however much capital that you have to work with.
Well, that's true too. Somebody's got to, you know, make offerings for this, you know, to be able to make this happen. Yes.
Mm-hmm. You know, he paid for it here because the family over there wasn't able to,
Okay.
so that they would have that celebration and the good send off.
Right. Okay. So now we go back to the middle page of 162. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchuk Bema Dorje, listen to me. It is due to your own past actions that you are now suffering in this way. No one else is responsible. This is solely the result of your own past actions. Pray ardently now to the three precious jewels. They will protect you. If you do not pray intensely now, especially if you do not how to meditate on the great seal, or if you cannot meditate on a meditational deity, the innate good conscience within you will now gather together all your virtuous actions, counting them out with white pebbles. And the innate bad consciousness within you will gather together all your non-virtuous actions, counting them out with black pebbles. At this moment, you will tremble with extreme fear, awe, and terror. You will tell lies, saying, I have not committed non-virtuous actions. But at this, Yama will say, I shall consult the mirror of past actions. So this is an interesting passage here. So it's saying that if you haven't taken responsibility for your past actions, good, bad, or indifferent, and you haven't developed a practice on which to support you in this time, then it says the innate good consciousness within you will now gather together all your virtuous actions and the bad consciousness. So this is something within ourselves. So in Buddhism, we talk about the alaya consciousness. We talk about that there's 8 mind consciousnesses, and the last of them is the alaya consciousness. And this is the storehouse consciousness. And this is, this is similar, I think, to what we would call the soul. In the Western traditions, in the Judeo-Christian, they talk about the soul, that we have this soul. And the soul is like holder of all the good things and all the bad things. The soul can be stained, but the soul can be very good. And so this is like in this passage here, it's talking about this innate good conscience and bad conscience would be this consciousness of this alaya consciousness. Now, this alaya consciousness is something that we cultivate as ordinary beings, and we hold on to this. This is an extreme. This is one of the extreme views of eternalism, that there is this soul, and this soul will perpetuate whatever goodness or whatever badness that we have done in our lives. But this is an illusion. This soul is an illusion. It's something that we create for ourselves, and that if we abide in that creation, then we become tortured by that. Or maybe we feel that we are elated in that. But we feel that it becomes criteria for who we are and who we are to become. So here in this passage, it's talking about the white pebbles and the black pebbles. So it's talking about that here is this, the good consciousness is saying, oh, I did all these good things, so I should have a good, noble rebirth. But the black pebbles are saying, oh no, well, I've got these black pebbles here and I did these terrible things. And because of that, I'm going to have a very difficult rebirth. I'm going to have a bad life in the next life and so on. So, but it is dependent upon our clinging to either or both of these. This is another illusory figment of our imagination. So letting go of this alaya consciousness is a very important feature of what we need to develop our awareness of, what the human mind is capable of, how the human mind does this and clings to this. What do you think about that?
Doesn't the prayer of aspiration help us along this journey that you're talking about, in terms of accounting for our transgressions? I'll call them. That's not the word I'm looking for, but I can't think of the word I'm looking for. And
well, it is true, yes, and but you got to remember that the prayer of the aspiration of good actions and so on is based on the idea that we are involved in this life, in this phenomenal nature. So, and it's saying that, okay, we have to take responsibility for this life. So we're going to do it with these good actions and so on. So it's not putting it in the context of when we die that we are going to go through these Bardo experiences. It's talking about it in this life. So in that way, it's a little bit different than the Bardo Thodol. The Bardo Thodol is liberation. And the King of Prayers, the aspiration for good actions, is very much involved in this life. So it's saying, okay, I'm here. Now what am I going to do with it? I'm not ready to die yet, but what am I going to do while I'm here? And that prayer is saying, well, here's what you need to do. This is what you need to be thinking about. These are the actions that you need to be involved in.
I'm looking at page 162, and if you do not pray intensely now, the operative word is if. And this really seems psychologically true because I experience this now. If I am praying intensely, meditating, thinking of the Yidam, etc., then that's where my focus is, and good things will come. But if I'm not practicing, my habits take over. The white pebbles and the black pebbles they're the things that are the cause of what I experience. And but that word if is the operative word. The rest of the paragraph hinges on that if. In fact, the next paragraph too. It's all if you are not doing those things that this, wrangling with Yama will come forth.
That's right. Yeah, good observation. Absolutely. Yeah. If we don't have a mindfulness of our spirituality and what that means and the transcendence that is communicating to us, that the spirituality is symbolic of our freedom, of our transcendence. So if we're holding on to our spirituality in such a way that it becomes a liability to us. We have to let that go too. It's another concept.
When I'm resting on my laurels, kind of coasting spiritually, and I'm not feeling, the four remembrances, little things come up. It's like, it's denial is how I deal with the things that are unpleasant. And it's really a very asleep state. When I'm practicing, my focus is very different. And this just speaks to me. It really speaks to, a bit of lethargy, a bit of slackness or laziness, because, it's familiar to me psychologically. And if I don't do anything now, I'm likely to have that same condition of being slack and have those pebbles, start to be undeniable. Now, or in this life, or in the afterlife.
Yes, thank you. Was William trying to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask, does this go? This doesn't seem like it goes through with somebody who is turning into a Buddha or an Arhat.
They've already done that.
Excuse me? They already did
what? They would have already done that by now. This is in the latter part. So, this is, you had that opportunity and you missed that opportunity at this point. So now you're dealing with, the rebirth of becoming an ordinary human being.
Well, no, I'm talking about somebody like um, what's the guy that's, I can't, it doesn't come off the top of my head. The head of the thing.
A Tulku?
Drupal? Rinpoche?
No, well, yeah. Okay, is the Rinpoche, is he going to be, is he considered a Buddha?
Not necessarily, but I think maybe the what you're driving at is if there is a highly realized being who is liberated in the bardo of reality, in the peaceful bardo, but then they manifest through a miraculous rebirth. They don't necessarily go through these stages of rebirth as ordinary beings might go through. They would manifest in a miraculous way. Remember, there's 4 ways in which we're born. So that miraculous is, like it says, it's miraculous, and the way in which that energy, if you want to call it that, assimilates or coalesces into the zygote of the mother and the father. The way those 3 come together is a miraculous event. What we're talking about here now is those who have to go through, an ordinary birth. And it's not determined at this time whether it's going to be a womb birth, whether it's going to be an egg birth, or it's going to be a heat and moisture birth.
So now, go ahead.
Yeah.
What did she say? Womb birth or a heat and what?
Heat and moisture and an egg birth. So there's 4 types of birth. There's a womb birth, there's heat and moisture, and there is egg, and there is miraculous. So the miraculous happens very, very, very quickly, very, very spontaneously, and bypasses, this lower bardo experiences.
Well, okay.
But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Well, the thing that I'm the Dalai Lama.
Yes.
If the Dalai Lama dies,
Yes.
and you don't go this far with the readings, you stop.
I can't say for sure, but I think that he, someone of that level, of that realized being, would be liberated in the bardo of death. It wouldn't even go to the bardo of reality. It goes right through the bardo of death, goes right to Samantapadra and Samantapadri. So if you go back to where we started, if you go back to the time of death, if you go back to part 1, page 70, and read those passages there, starting on page 70, then that addresses that realized being and the way in which they pass into liberation. All right, so let's get back to where we were. Let me see here. So page 162. So
163.
yeah, I
We're
got
we're
it.
ready for the good part.
I got it. So does anybody else have a question before we move on? Just to make sure, I don't want anybody to be overlooked. Okay, so now, page 163. In the mirror of past actions, all your virtues and non-virtues will be reflected vividly and precisely. Your attempts at deceit will be of no use. Tying a rope around your neck, Yama will drag you forward. He will sever your head at the neck, extract your heart, pull out your entrails, lick your brains, drink your blood, eat your flesh, and suck your bones. Despite this, you will not die. Even as your body is repeatedly cut into pieces, it will continuously be revived. Experiencing being cut into pieces in this way, time after time, will cause enormous suffering. From the moment of the counting of the pebbles begins, do not be afraid, do not be terrified, do not lie, and do not be afraid of Yama. The body that which you now have is a mental body. Therefore, even though you experience being slain and cut into pieces, you cannot die. Recognize now that in reality, you need have no fear, because in truth, your body is a natural form of emptiness. The acolytes of Yama are also, in reality, natural forms of emptiness. These are your own bewildered perceptions. Your body formed of mental propensities is a natural form of emptiness. Emptiness cannot harm emptiness. Signlessness cannot harm signlessness. Outside and distinct from your own bewildering perceptions, Yama, gods, malevolent forces, the bull-headed Raksa, and so on, do not substantially exist. Recognize this. Recognize now that this is the intermediate state. Place your mind in the meditative stability of the Great Seal. So again, if we are chasing these thoughts, we are chasing illusions, and we are thinking that these illusions are permanent, that these appearances exist, when all they are is just figments of our imagination that we've allowed ourselves to run away with. If we are able to transcend all these thoughts as a living being, then when we enter into the Bardo, there's no need for any of this. We'll be liberated. So this is calling attention to those who have not been able to do that. And to be able to call attention to our daily practices in order to develop that liberation now.
This is, Lance, this is the section that a lot of monks would be teaching the people in the deep country, where there are, a lot of ignorant people. They can't read and write. For the simple fact, to create virtue, to create merit, because a lot of them aren't exposed to these teachings. So this is a lot of fear here, and sometimes they use, these ways of fearing people into doing virtuous things and to be meritorious, And I remember as a child, monks, giving these exact teachings right here, looking at the mirror of past action, and they would really go into detail of what to expect. But as you're exposed more to it, and you have the ability to read and to write and to understand and have some intellect, you can understand that these are, like you said, all coming from us, that it's all within us. But for the older people, in the country, in the deep countries, it's hard for them to possibly comprehend this. So it's when you're reading this, it really brings back a lot of childhood memories of that type of Buddhism.
Okay, very good. Yes. And here it points out when it's talking about your body's formed of mental propensities. It's a natural form of emptiness. Emptiness cannot harm emptiness. Signlessness cannot harm signlessness. This really goes to the teachings of the Heart Sutra. You know, the Heart Sutra being this condensed, very short teaching, really, on emptiness. And someone who has been able to fathom that and become the embodiment of the Heart Sutra, all this stuff just falls away. All this stuff is not necessary. All this stuff will have, as I say, isn't necessary because one will have been liberated in the Bardo of reality, in the peaceful Bardo, or maybe with the wrathful deities, if there was some stubbornness there that needed to be woken up, you know. So we wouldn't be at this point here. So again, but this is making reference to the Heart Sutra and these other teachings, so that in this Bardo of living, we have the opportunity to go back and research and be able to see all this and say, oh, this is how this Bardo Thodol is helping me as an ordinary person now. Remember, it's got two purposes. It's got the purpose to guide someone who is lost in the Bardo, but it's got the purpose of teaching ourselves how to prepare ourselves for the Bardo, to liberate from the Bardo. Does that make sense? Can you see that? Is there anybody here who doesn't understand the Heart Sutra or where to find the Heart Sutra? Okay, so this, you know, if you've got it handy, you know, at some point next week, maybe get it out and go through it. Okay, so it says the last sentence of this paragraph, the last sentence of all these paragraphs are great. The first and the last sentences are always, you know, the most powerful, I think. Place your mind in the meditative stability of the Great Seal, the Mahamudra. The Mahamudra is the stable meditation mind, the true nature. The Mahamudra, the Great Seal, the Dzogchen, is the great perfection. Same thing. Their approach is a little different, but the meaning is the same. So now the middle of page 164. If you do not know how to meditate, directly examine the essence of that which is producing your fear and terror. This essence is a stark emptiness, completely without inherent existence in any respect whatsoever. This stark emptiness is the Buddha body of reality. I'm going to repeat that. The stark emptiness is the Buddha body of reality. Yet this emptiness is not a vacuous or nihilistic emptiness. The essential nature of this emptiness is an awesome, direct, and radiant awareness, which is the enlightened intention of the Buddha body of perfect resource. Indeed, emptiness and radiance are not separate. The essential nature of emptiness is radiance, and the essential nature of radiance is emptiness. So this is kind of dense if you're not familiar with these terms. The Buddha body of reality is the Dharmakaya, is the mind of the Buddha, the peaceful deities. That's the mind of the Buddha at the heart center. The Buddha body of perfect resource is the Sambhogagaya, is the intellectualization, is the form body of that which is the mind. The mind has no form. The mind has no desire. The Sambhogagaya is the subtle enjoyment body of now intellectualizing what this mind is, and doing this for the benefit of ordinary beings. Because if you don't recognize this, then we need to appeal to the intellect to be able to begin to understand, in symbolic terms, what we're going through, what this world is, and so on. The Buddha body of perfect resource, the Sambhogagaya, is a phenomenal nature, is part of phenomenal nature. It's got a form, but it has no desire. These are the meditational deities. So in other words, all the five Buddha families are meditational deities. And they're helping us to understand our true nature. So it's like if you're taking this clear light and then you're coalescing this clear light, and as you coalesce it now, these other lights begin to appear. Out of this clear light comes white light, comes blue light, comes red light, comes green light, and comes yellow light. And each one of those are indicative or symbolic of that particular family, of the quadrants of the mandalas that we've been studying. And that they have different qualities about them, which are all bodhicitta, but their activities are different. The way in which that bodhicitta is being actualized. So that's what's being said here. The stark emptiness is the Buddha body of reality, the Dharmakaya. Yet this emptiness is not a vacuous or nihilistic emptiness. It's made up of many things, but it's all just temporary. The essential nature of this emptiness is an awesome, direct, and radiant awareness, which is the enlightened intention of the Buddha body of perfect resource. So it's like the sun. Again, we use that analogy. The sun is radiating light and radiating heat. Does it have an intention to do that, or is it just spontaneously do that? So the Buddha, this Buddha body of reality, is just radiating light. It's just radiating wisdom, is radiating love, is radiating bodhicitta. That's its essence, is to do that. And we have that within ourselves. So we have to remove the blockages to be able to do that. In order for us to recognize what the blockages are and what that radiance is made up of, is the Buddha body of perfect resource, which is the meditational deities, the Sambhogagaya deities.
Lance, what does this perfect resource mean? I don't know what to make of those two words.
All right, let's put it this way. If you're trying to find something out, whatever it is, science or it's intellectualism, or medicine or whatever, and you go into your house and you look around and there's no books, there's no information that you have to be able to guide you. But then you say, oh, wait a minute, you know what? I can go to the library and I can find all those resources in the library. All those books are in the library. All that accumulated wisdom, all that accumulated knowledge, all that accumulated skillful means is in the library. So that's a resource, isn't it? So we're saying that the Buddha body of perfect resource is our meditation. That's where we discover our true nature. That's where we see the embodiment of that. We're examining it with our ordinary mind conceptually, because that's how we work. So the Buddha body of perfect resource is the meditation, is developing those experiences of the meditation, of the meditational deities, of those aspects of the Buddha, of the true nature. Here's the diamond nature. The diamond is made up of bodhicitta, but it's got these different aspects to it, these different facets, which are its activities, the way in which it actualizes in the world. That becomes the Nirmanakaya. That's the Nirmanakaya. So did that help explain it? Chris?
Yes. The way it writes, it comes close to a field of mind, a field of being. In that sense, it comes close to eternalistic notions of an absolute.
But no, it doesn't. I don't know how you can say that.
Well, the emptiness is bigger than me.
You're imputing that.
Well, the emptiness is not just inside me. It's suffused throughout creation, or throughout everything it is.
Emptiness is a concept. And concepts are just in the mind. The mind is a concept. They don't truly exist. We give them a value of existence. This is central to what we're trying to understand. Understanding that yields freedom. Not understanding that and being bound up by that means attachment or aversion. And not that it's bad. We're examining, we're in the midst of being able to understand this. We're on the verge of being able to do that. So don't look at it as being bad, but the freedom is freedom. Freedom from all thoughts, freedom from all attachments, all aversions, freedom from all concepts. It's beyond our human ability to be able to understand that. We have to experience that as a meditational deity. And that's what the meditational deities teach us, how to do that. And not go crazy. So at times like this, we say, how do I do this? Why don't I understand this? It's practice, 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 practice. You're not going to intellectualize your way into this. You will practice your way into this. You will become the embodiment of this. Does that make any sense?
It's one angle to respond, but I still find that the way it's talking about the Buddha body of reality, that points, if you will, to something, beyond me, bigger than me. And it's just the problem of words, the way words can edge up to things.
Right? You're very correct. Okay. Anybody else got a comment about this? Okay. We'll go to the next paragraph. If you do not know how to meditate, now wait a minute, did we do this? No, we haven't done this. No, we just did do this. Excuse me for losing my place here.
This indivisible, naked, unclouded and exposed awareness.
Okay, yes. So let's, all right, so let me just go back a little bit. It says, yet this emptiness is not a vacuous or nihilistic emptiness. The essential nature of this emptiness is an awesome, direct, and radiant awareness, which is the enlightened intention of the Buddha body of perfect resource. Is the enlightened intention of the Buddha body of perfect resource. So what that means is that there is a purpose to this, is to be able to elucidate, to be able to give us a conceptualization of what it is that leads up to this Buddha body of reality. So it's this body of intellectualization. It's this library of stuff, of knowledge, which is the enlightened intention of the Buddha body of perfect resource. So if we could say that the Buddha designed all this, and the Buddha said, okay, here's my mind, but nobody's going to understand that. But poof, I'm going to magically make this phenomenal appearance manifest so that people can begin to understand it. Then that's the perfect resource. You know, we don't think of it in those terms, though, that there was this magical ability, this supreme being who can do something like this. We don't think of it that way. But then for those of us who are normal, and this Buddha body of perfect resource is very abstract, at the least, to say. They wouldn't think of this on their own. Then we have the Buddha body of emanation, or the Nirmanakaya. So now here come the teachers. Here comes the Buddha Shakyamuni. Here comes Garchen Rinpoche. Here comes Penor Rinpoche. Here comes the Dalai Lama. Here comes all these great beings, Milarepa. Here comes all these great beings who became the embodiment of this perfect resource and the Buddha body of reality. And through the resource, they were able to teach and lead people through their seeing them, their hearing them, their being able to touch them, their commonality of being a human being. However, their humanness was the essence of their humanness was their Buddha nature. We have it. We all have it. With them, it was realized. So, which is the enlightened intention of the Buddha body of resource. Indeed, emptiness and radiance are not separate. The essential nature of emptiness is radiance, and the essential nature of radiance is emptiness. That sentence there, you should write down, and you should ponder that, contemplate that over and over again for maybe the next 5 or 10 years. This indivisible, naked, unclouded, and exposed awareness, present as it is right now, is a natural, uncontrived state, is the Buddha body of essentiality. Furthermore, the natural expressive power of this Buddha body of essentiality is the compassionate Buddha body of emanation, which arises everywhere without obstruction. So this is the Buddha body. This is the emanation body. This is the embodiment of the teachings, of the essence of enlightenment. The essentiality, the Buddha body of emanation. So this paragraph is really incredible with the profundity of what it is that it is conveying to us. It is the essence of this whole Bardo experience of what our potential is and how we approach that potential, how we recognize that potential. So if you look on page 165, and you look on the left side of the page, you see a human being standing naked. They're they're not sexual, but they are a human being, obviously. And the two lights are there, the sun and the moon on either side, and you see the rainbow body that is going from the crown of his head up to Samantabhadra, up to the primordial Buddha, the transcendence of that, from the dualistic nature being indicated by the sun and the moon, being indicated by our dualistic, our dualism, all this, the perfect resource and the essentiality, all that is all dualistic. And this is all being transcended into the Dharmakaya, into the Buddha body of reality. The way in which we do it, if you look over on the right side, you've seen this image before, I've talked about this. Here is a yogi sitting and visualizing and seeing the five bodies, the five Buddhas, characterized all as Vajrasattva in the five Buddha family colors. This is the way that we approach this. If we try and do it as it says on the left side there, it's too abstract. We have to approach it from a multiplicity first, and then we can begin to condense the multiplicity into very simple, make it simplify. So we get at the five Buddha families, and then we see that the five Buddha families then all come together as one in Samantabhadra. So this next paragraph on page 165 says, "O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchuk Pema Dorje, listen to me now. Do not be distracted. By merely recognizing the essential nature of your experience in the above way, you attain perfect Buddhahood, endowed with these four Buddha bodies. Do not be distracted. The division between Buddhas and sentient beings is determined by this recognition. If you are distracted at this critical moment, the opportunity to escape from the swamp of suffering will be lost. It is said of this very moment, in an instant, penetrating analysis is made. In an instant, perfect Buddhahood is attained." So it's pretty far out, huh? I think Tom characterized it very well. And we can't let this go. We have to contemplate this. This is the path of the Buddhas. This is the path of the Bodhisattvas. This is the path of the yogis, the path of the practitioners. All right, so we'll stop reading here for tonight, for this time. Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions about this?
Is yogi interchangeable with enlightened being?
No. A yogi is in union. Yoga means union. So
Okay.
a practitioner is someone who is reading these things and contemplating these things and studying these things and so on, but they may not be the embodiment of these things. They have not come into union with these things. They cannot see themselves as Vajrasattva. They cannot see themselves as Shenrezig or any of the other Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. A yogi or a yogini can. So we become a yogi or a yogini upon being a practitioner who has realized their inseparability with the body, speech, and mind of the enlightened ones.
Again,
Did somebody say something?
So in other words, this is interchangeable.
With what?
The yoga and yogini and the Buddha.
No.
no.
All right.
They've made a union, but it's not a stable union. They made the connection, but it's not a permanent connection, or a stable connection would be the better way to say it. So as we become, the next step would become a bodhisattva, a wholly enlightened being. Now we are closer to becoming a Buddha, and we are more of a actualized yogi or yogini by being a wholly enlightened being, by being a bodhisattva. And then a bodhisattva then, when a bodhisattva is able to liberate from being a bodhisattva, then becomes a Buddha. And that means, when I say liberate, I mean being free of all these concepts. Bodhisattvas still have concepts. There's bodhisattva concepts. So, in the Jewel Ornamental Liberation, it's articulated very well, I think in chapter 20, 19 or 20, and talks about them. And it's very abstract. It can be very dense, and doing that. And that's why we have to work at it and build up. And it takes years. It takes a long time to do this.
So one of the difficulties in doing that work is that we want to evolve to this non-conceptual state, and yet we're introduced to a great complexity, a myriad of concepts along the way. It seems like a lot of baggage to get to the ultimate destination. All those concepts.
Well, remember in the prayer of good actions, it's telling us that it's going to take eons of time, for us to be able to go through this process. But we are devoted to that process, however long it takes. We are devoted to it. You can bail out anytime you want.
No, I'm not talking about the time element. The time element could be instantaneous.
Well, it's the multiplicity of it. And when you realize the emptiness of the multiplicity, then you're there. The emptiness of the multiplicity. Now you don't feel that compulsion to have to want to know everything.
Oh, I can say for myself, I want to know less and less as I evolve.
Right. You want to be simpler. And that's a hallmark of going through the spiral, getting closer, to the true nature, is wanting to be simpler. So it's all articulated in the King of Prayers. The aspiration for this, not the actualization of it, but the aspiration for it is articulated there. What it takes for us to get there, that's work, and it means letting go, saying, and this is the significance of Vajrayogini. If you know anything about the Bardo Thodol, you know anything about Poa, if you've been exposed to that, and that we visualize ourselves as Vajrayogini. And Vajrayogini has in her right hand, she's holding a hooked knife, a curved knife, and she's cutting off all these attachments, cutting off all these roots of attachments to emotions and so on. And it gets to the point where she says, I'm not going to play this game anymore. And we are Vajrayogini. We have to see ourselves as Vajrayogini and get to the point where you say, I'm not going to play this game anymore. But you're replacing it with devotion. You're replacing it with wisdom. You're replacing it with the 8 great bodhisattvas. We talked about, the symbolism of what the minds of the 8 great bodhisattvas represent. That's what you're replacing it with. Instead of the multiplicity of all this stuff, it just becomes very simple. Transformation, purification, wisdom, cultivation, compassion.
I think you said it best, Lance, when you said that before we become a Buddhist, we benefit all beings. Once we become a Buddhist, we benefit all beings. And once we become a Buddha, that's all we do is benefit all beings. That's
Like the Dalai Lama says, the job is the same.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Time has come, and
Thank you,
I know-
Lance.
you're welcome. I know this is a lot, and I hope that you go back and spend some time reading these things, thinking about these things, contemplating these things. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where, change comes in your own life.
And I'm just reminded by all of this, Lance, that it really does come down to the cushion, and in the cushion you get glimpse after glimpse, and if we stick with it, those glimpses run together and at some point are unbroken and we're fully enlightened. And if you just think of it that way, then everything else starts falling away, and hopefully faster and faster.
Correct. Okay. So unless somebody has something that you want to say before we start our dedication prayers. Okay, Debbie, will you put up the prayers?
Emaho. In the center is the marvelous Buddha Amitabha of boundless light. On the right side is Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of great compassion. On the left is Vajrapani, the Lord of powerful means. All are surrounded by limitless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Immeasurable peace and happiness is the blissful Pure Land of Dewachen. When I and all beings pass from samsara, may we be born in Dewachen without taking samsaric rebirth. May I have the blessing of meeting Amitabha face to face. By the power and blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, may I attain this aspiration without hindrance. Tayata pensadriya awa bodhanaya soha. Tayata pensadriya awa bodhanaya soha. Tayata pensadriya awa bodhanaya soha.
The translation for that is, this is it. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are the 5 families and the 3 times who have destroyed defilement lead to the equipoise of the enlightened mind. Who have destroyed defilement lead to equipoise of the enlightened mind. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. By this virtue, may I achieve all knowingness by defeating all enemies' confusion. May all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of suffering. As Manjushri the warrior realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings.
Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Thank you all very much. Look forward to seeing you all next time.
Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.